Hey guys, DRJ here, and today I wanted to talk to you about something that, instead of just focusing on one game, but it affects basically like the entire media in general, but it affects both PC and console gamers. That topic is essentially piracy. Where I want to go with that is piracy versus pricing versus either the real or perceived fall or decline of the PC as a gaming device. I published something about this on Mr. Peaky Pants a few weeks back and wanted to expand on that and take it a little bit further. So basically, to start off with, as far as piracy goes, there's two different camps. One that says whatever, and the other one that says we hate it, right? So the first camp, a great example of that is a company you might have heard about, Infinity Ward. So Infinity Ward, a few years ago, basically said that pirating, whatever, same thing, is basically the single biggest contributor for the decline in their sales on the PC. They're not a big fan of piracy. It's this kind of mindset that in general gets you things like DRM, where either you have to have like an active internet connection in order to play your video game, or you can only install it so many times. BioShock did that, got a lot of guff for it. So did, I think The Witcher originally did too. Even StarCraft is doing stuff like that. Everyone knows they removed LAN support. Anyway. The other opposing side of that is just sort of like, well, maybe we don't like piracy, but we can't do anything about it, so we're not going to try to punish people for, doing it. Well, when we try to punish the pirates, we're basically punishing both sides at one time, so whatever, we're just not going to do anything about it, and if it happens, it happens. An example of that would be a company called Stardock Entertainment. You might not have heard of them because they're definitely a smaller company. They actually have a service out there that's similar to Steam called Impulse. You log on, buy games, chat with people, things like that. But a few years back, they put out a game called Sins of the Solar Empire, and they know for a fact that the game was pirated, but they didn't include any anti-pirating software or anything like that in it. But what was really interesting about the year that they put out Sins of a Solar Empire is, I can't remember if they had the highest or one of the highest profit margins that entire year. And what that means is profit margin isn't necessarily how much you made total, it's how much you made compared to how much you spent. So the way that Stardock approaches it is that they're going to make games with low overhead and use an engine, say, from 5 years ago or something like that, so that their budget for their game is really small and doesn't have to sell 15 million copies in order for them to break even, which is, I think, one of the big differences between themselves and, say, Infinity Ward or COD or Battlefield or whatever. They have to sell a ton of copies just to break even, and they don't have to. They can sell a couple 100,000 copies. So I just wanted you to keep that in your head for the moment. I'm going to talk about pricing, I said, in the PC, and then I'll tie it all together at the end. So as far as pricing goes, there are some interesting options that are affected by issues such as piracy. But one of the interesting ways we're seeing with pricing is, say, things like microtransactions that are pretty common in a lot of Asian MMOs. So you pay, like, say, I don't know, 50 cents or $1 or something like that for like an experience boost for a day. I think things like that are going to start to become more and more popular as time goes on. Flat monthly fees will probably not be around so much in the future. But other things, like, say, the way to sell games. I tweeted something the other day about how COD Black Ops is still for sale at $60. A new game comes out in a couple months. It's nearing the end of its 11-month lifespan, which is ridiculous. Basically, Valve did something really, really cool with Left 4 Dead originally about a year or two back. So they reduced the pricing on Left 4 Dead down to basically 25 bucks, and they saw a phenomenal increase in sales. I think it was when they reduced the pricing by 50%. They saw a 350% increase in sales, and it beat the launch day of the video game. They sold more copies, several months down the line at $25 than they did originally at $50. And then when they reduced it down even further to 75% of the original cost, they saw like a 1,650% increase in sales. So there's some really interesting ideas out there about how sales can affect video games. Basically, lowering the price opens up a whole new market. And, it seems like, I won't say common sense, but there's a lot of games out there that I would buy if they were around 10, 15 bucks, maybe even 20. But I'm not going to take a big risk on a game if it's, $60. So I think that's one of the big issues that affects the potential sales of the PC. And now to talk about the more or less real versus perceived fall or decline of the PC as a gaming device. There's a lot of different reasons for that. Piracy is one of them, whether it's real or perceived by the gaming companies. The companies, whether it's real or perceived, the gaming companies think it's a real thing for the most part, by and large, at least the big publishers and producers. And so they're definitely focusing on console, and actually one of the repercussions of that, as I'm sure you guys have heard about, is EA doing things like trying to discourage people from buying even used console games. So now, like, if you buy a used version of BF3 at the store, you're going to have to go in and pay an extra 10 or 15 bucks to buy an online pass to Battlefield 3 in order to play it online. So like I said, game publishers, companies are now focusing on console games, so I think that's one of the big reasons why PC gamers are starting to see a fall or a decline in sales and players. To go back to the Steam player numbers, the top played game on Steam is TF2, which reaches around 60 to 70,000 people per day. If I log on to play COD, prime time on Xbox, I'm seeing somewhere around 500,000 people. That is a phenomenal increase in people playing. We're talking about one of the most popular games, the most popular game on PC versus one of the more popular games on console, and that is just a huge increase. What that means on PC is that any of these games that are less played, Battlefield, Bad Company 2, Left 4 Dead, Monday Night Combat, whatever, they're running around, it's like around 5 to 10,000 people playing. That is just peanuts compared to 500,000 people. And then you get into issues like on the PC where you have dedicated servers and you have mods and all sorts of different things. So say you have this player base of 5,000, it's not like having, everything is not standardized on a PC, so what you end up with is, this huge smorgasbord of different mods, different servers, different player sizes, and that's not counting things like ping, game type, and everything like that. So, good luck if you can find a 6v6 to 9v9 game of whatever, COD or Battlefield or something like that, because chances are you're not going to find one that's running a good ping, the same game type you want, and the game mode or whatever else. It's really, really hard to control. The last issue we have is basically pricing, and it's a couple $100 for a console right now, and to make a good gaming PC, it's around, I guess you can do it on a budget for 500 bucks. Technically, yes, it's possible. But to make a good PC that's going to last you for a couple years and it'll be close to top of the line, it's going to run you, probably close to 1,200 bucks at the moment. That is a huge increase in price, and that's just too expensive for most people. And I don't blame them. So I think all those factors, the piracy, the pricing, the things like that, are definitely contributors to the fall of the PC. Basically the only thing that the console doesn't have going for it is the mouse and the keyboard, and I think that that's something that we'll most likely be seeing in the next generation of consoles because of the financial incentive to play MMOs basically on console to increase their player base. There's simply too many buttons in World of Warcraft to play on a console, and as much as they want to add features like Netflix and browsing and things like that, you're still so limited with what you can do with a controller versus a mouse and keyboard. And it opens up a whole can of worms as to, who's going to play with who as far as mouse and keyboard versus controllers, and I'm not going to get into that. Like I said, I wanted to focus on the piracy issue and just talk to you guys about that, and, I don't know, just plant that seed, let you guys think about that. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of different ways that things can happen. Piracy versus pricing, and console versus PCs. Essentially we're all using the same hardware, and I think we're only hurting ourselves by, pretending that we're not basically playing with the same device. And unfortunately, we're not playing with all our friends because we're playing on a PS3 and your friend's on a Xbox and I'm on a PC. So anyway, that's about it. Let me know your questions, comments, feedback. This is a really big topic, and I'm sure I missed out on a whole lot of stuff. It's hard to cram it into 10, 15 minutes, so let me know what you guys think.